Okay, so it's 11 o'clock. So welcome everybody. Welcome to COMP2084 server-side scripting. Glad to have you back in school. I know that probably this isn't anybody's idea of, the ideal learning environment. It'd be great that we could be back in the class. But we'll do our best. I'm going to do my best to make it as positive and an enjoyable an experience for you. Try to recreate kind of a class environment as best I can. I've been teaching this class for a long time, and we're using a technology that I'm really comfortable with. We're going to be learning ASP.NET, and I've actually been working with ASP.NET ever since it was created, which was back in 2002. So I don't claim to know everything. Things are always changing. There's always new things happening. But I do have some experience both with the course and the technology. So before, I've been teaching at Georgian since 2010. Before that, I ran my own business, primarily doing web development, and most of the work that we did was using the Microsoft stack and using ASP.NET. Excuse me. So I've been teaching at the college since 2010, and this is now my full-time job. I still do a few projects on the side when I have time, usually that use ASP.NET. And so mostly I teach this class. Mostly I teach in the web programming space. So a few of you were in my class for PHP in winter. Sometimes I teach the relational database course you would have taken last semester. I teach the JavaScript frameworks course. I help develop that class where you're going to learn Node.js. I've also moved into teaching some mobile, so I'm also teaching Android. But my primary focus is web because that's where most of my industry experience is from. So our section's kind of a combination. I know some of you were studying at the Collingwood campus last year, and some of you are in Barrie. So we had two sections. So some of you are actually in different CRN numbers, but we've combined them with the number of students we have. So I'm actually teaching this course 3 separate times this semester. Which is sort of fortunate for you guys because this is the 3rd lesson I do each week. So I'm teaching this course for the Lakehead group, and they're a week ahead. They've already done their first 2 lessons, and that course is on Tuesdays. There's a section of this class for the web program. That section is on Mondays, but it's pretty much the same lesson. So somebody asked, is it possible to access content videos before the lesson? The simple way to do that is if you want to check out anything from the Monday lesson, you can just go to my YouTube channel and you'll see the Monday class playlist. So if you want to get an idea of what we'll be doing on Wednesdays, it's going to be fairly similar to that lesson Monday. I am still going to record each class separately because we may have some different permutations, different questions that come up. So I will record and upload all of those sections excuse me, to their respective playlists. I'm going to flip my camera off and pull up a copy of the syllabus. I'm just going to move my chat over to my second monitor. Excuse me. So our class, we're going to use WebEx. Now, our schedule's been allocated 11 until 2 o'clock. I know that's a fairly long time, 3-hour class, especially when it's online. So a lot of days when I can, I'm going to try and keep the lessons a little bit shorter. If we can get through what we want to accomplish in 2 hours with maybe a short 10-minute break, I'm going to try. I can't promise we'll be done by 1 every week, but I'll try to be mindful of keeping things under 3 hours if I possibly can. Excuse me. So what we're looking at is using the Microsoft web development stack. So ASP.NET for our web applications, C# to write our server-side script, and for database, we're going to use Microsoft's database product, which is SQL Server. So we'll try to compare and contrast what we're doing with the PHP language and see why we kind of teach you guys PHP first as a starter language, and then we move into ASP.NET for more advanced web programming. So the best way to reach me is by email, and I'll talk a bit more about that, about the communication policy in a second. My office phone number is here, but like you, I'm not on campus this semester. I'm working from home, so probably no point phoning my office extension. Just send me an email. For office hours, I've got 4 hours each week available for you to book. I ask that you please do book an appointment because I use this meeting room, and that way I know who to expect, and you're not waiting around behind a big lineup of other students if you need some help. So those 2 blocks of office hours are Tuesdays and Thursdays from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. So you can book an appointment with me. I know probably some of you are familiar with the system already. Ross uses it, Jarrett uses it. So on Calendly, you can book a 15-minute appointment. And Calendly is great because it will send me an email notice and it will automatically put the appointment in my Outlook calendar as well as in your calendar. If you need an appointment at an alternate time, you can request one. But generally, I'll encourage you to try and stick to the scheduled office hours as best we can. So I'd ask, please just book one appointment and come prepared with what you want to discuss just so we can make the most use of our time. Because I try to keep the appointments to 15 minutes. When assignments are due, those slots tend to fill up. So I want to help as many people I can in the time that's available. And I ask, if you book a meeting and then you realize you don't need it, please just go back to Calendly and delete the meeting. Again, that notifies me and it frees up that space in my calendar so another student can then grab that meeting appointment time. So Calendly works pretty well. It's easy to use. It's integrated into Office and Outlook. So that's the way to book an appointment. So Tuesdays and Thursdays. So here's what you can expect from me. I promise to come prepared. As I said, I taught this class many times, so I have a good plan of what I want to teach you guys and what I would like us to accomplish together. Because I've worked with ASP.NET quite a bit, I've got lots of real world projects that we can kind of look at, both from the front end as well as under the hood. We can poke around in the code and see how things are put together. So we can kind of compare that and use that to help guide some of the things we're doing in class with the applications we're going to build. I don't know everything. The technology is always evolving. So when you ask me something I don't know, I will tell you I don't know, and I will try and find the answer and get back to you. I try to be really clear about how your work is graded. So every assignment will have a rubric and you'll get a detailed breakdown of your marks. So you won't be wondering, I'm not throwing darts at a dartboard to come up with your grade. Your grade is going to be broken down very specifically. And lastly, I'm open to your feedback. Like, this is, as I said, a full online class. Morning, Jeffrey. Full online class, it's kind of new for all of us. I'm doing online classes myself. I'm working on a graduate degree where my degree is fully online. So I understand some of the challenges of trying to learn in this environment. In terms of communicating with me, so here's when I'll get back to you. If you email me during the school week, generally you'll get, I'll try to respond within 24 hours. I try to get off my devices in the evenings and on the weekends. So if you send me an email at night, you're probably not going to get a response until the next day. And I'm also taking 2 night classes online myself for my graduate degree. So I'm not going to be able to respond to email on those days. If you email me over the weekend, you may get a response quickly, but typically you should expect a response on Monday if you send me an email Friday night or over the weekends. Anybody have any questions about me or about kind of my part in our little project here? Again, you can use the chat or you can use the microphone. Okay, thanks, Lindsay. I will keep my eye on the chat. So that's my part. Here's your part. Follow you definitely, in order to succeed in the class, you want to be in class. So if you can attend synchronously, that's great. I think you're going to get the most out of it. You can get immediate help. You don't have to wait for me to get back to you. You can learn asynchronously, where you're just watching the videos on your own time. And especially if you are in another time zone, I realize you may have to do that. and you'll probably need to, ask questions by email. So do ask for help. I'm going to encourage you to start your assignments early, which gives you time to come to me, to email me for help or book an appointment. Okay, so you've got both of these things. I know one student posted in the forum this morning, their big concern about online learning is, how am I going to get help and get support? In a classroom, the teacher can just walk over it, but not quite as easy. So you can email me for help. You can post questions in the chat during class, and either I will try to address them, or if you can monitor the chat as well. If you see a classmate has a question, the answer, feel free to answer it and help each other. We may also do some small group work, activities where we might have to move to Microsoft Teams. I've been told that WebEx will support breakout groups, where I could put you in small groups and give you some small in-class tasks to work on or questions to discuss. We don't have that feature yet. So if we want to explore using that, either we may do it in Microsoft Teams. Yeah, Daniel, I'm hoping that does help me, be sympathetic to some of the challenges you guys are having. I know one actual thing that's actually interesting, in a lot of my professors insist we put our cameras on in my classes, and some people don't like that, and I can't insist. I'm not going to ask. In fact, if we all have our video on, it slows down the WebEx session. WebEx isn't great with the video, but I have to say, it really does help me feel like I'm in a real class where I actually know what my classmates look like and I know who everybody is. What do you think about working as a freelancer? Well, what my degree in is, Jeffrey, I'm getting a master's of education. So I'm actually already working as a paid employee, contract salary employee. But I figured it was, I only have some small training. Many of your professors at Georgian, we're knowledgeable in we come from an industry background, which I have, but a lot of us don't have a lot of training in education. So I'm trying to upgrade my own skills to become a better teacher. So I'm learning from some really terrific professors at Ontario Tech, a lot of whom are really experienced at teaching online. So I'm trying to steal some of their lesson ideas and tips and tools and incorporate that for some of my classes here at Georgian to give you guys a better experience. So other things that are critical in terms of you guys being successful in the class, make sure you start your assignments on time, you submit them on time, and do all the assignments, okay? Because every assignment is a chance for you to earn grades. So anything you don't do, those are grades you're really just throwing away. Obviously, everybody in this class has some aptitude to be an application developer, or you wouldn't have made it to semester 3. You wouldn't have survived semester 1 or semester 2, and you would have left the program or gone on to do something else. So, I have every confidence that if you do the work and submit the assignments, you're going to earn the credit. Right? Make sure that you're plugged into Blackboard. I know over the summer, you may have gotten out of the habit of checking your student email. Obviously, this is the only way I have to reach you, is through Blackboard and email, especially because we're not getting together in person. So stay dialed into those. There was one other thing I wanted to add on here. One other thing that I think is going to help you be successful. If at all possible, whatever you need to do, I cannot emphasize this strongly enough, please try to obtain a second monitor. Okay? If you're just working on your laptop and you're trying to watch the WebEx session as well as coding in Visual Studio, it's really hard to do on a laptop screen. So for example, I have 2 screens here. So I have the WebEx chat open on my second screen, and I can be seeing what's happening on my main screen. This summer, I was trying to upgrade some of my skills. So I was doing some LinkedIn learning courses. They've got some great tutorials on ASP.NET. Yeah, or 2 computers, that would be fine. Just so that you have 2 different ways so that you can follow along with what I'm doing on one screen and do your own work on the other screen. And this is going to help you not only in my class, but it's going to help you in all your classes. because whether you're doing synchronous learning or asynchronous learning, you're going to be watching what I'm doing and you're going to be doing it themselves. Yeah, you can find a used one on Kijiji. I mean, my second monitor is a really old one. Yep, an ultra wide monitor. That's also a great idea, Braden. If you really can't afford one, can you do your class? Do you have a TV with an HDMI cable and you could use your TV during lessons? But I think you'll find that if you have any kind of second display for online learning, like I said, this goes for all your classes. It's going to make you that much more productive and help you be able to learn effectively. So I would strongly recommend trying to obtain a second monitor, even an old one. It's going to make your life much, much easier. Yeah, and that's I think a good point that you mentioned, Kevin. Yeah, learning how you learn it is really important because everybody learns differently, and the technology we work with, it's changing all the time. So whatever we teach you here at Georgia, and you guys when you're out working in a few years, you're going to be doing things in new ways and better ways. So understanding how you learn is really important. So I just want to go over. Yeah, there you go, Kevin. Great idea. So here's how the grades are going to break down. Okay, so we've got 5 assignments, but these 5 assignments, it's really one big project. So you're going to build out one project over the course of the whole 4-month semester that's going to include all of the different features that we learn in class. Okay, so that project will count for 45% of your overall grade, but it's broken down into these 5 parts. So I'm going to give you the first part next week. It's small. It's basically just submitting a project plan for 5% of what you want to actually do for your project. So we'll look at that more next week. To try and make sure that you're keeping up with the work and understanding things kind of as we go, we're also going to have a weekly review quiz. So there's no quiz this week. Obviously, it's our first lesson. But at the end of class today, I will open up the first quiz, and it will be available until next Tuesday at 5 o'clock. The quiz will be on Blackboard. It's just a multiple choice quiz with questions coming directly out of our lesson content from today. So there's a pool of maybe 8 or 10 questions, and every student will get 5 questions at random. So you do it on your own, you do it at home, you do it on Blackboard. So we'll have probably 10 or 11 quizzes through the semester, and that'll be 20% of your grade. Okay, so that's just a way of, before you come to class next week, you do the quiz based on this week as a bit of a refresher for what we talked about this week. So, I mean, you'll be able to do the quiz right after class today if you want, but it may be not a bad idea to let it sit for a few days so that you come back to review the material before next week's class. You'll notice there's no midterm test, okay? And I've done that for a couple reasons. One, the online testing can be a challenge. 2, our semester is actually short by a week. So I decided I would rather have that class where we can learn new stuff rather than giving a test. So normally the quizzes are worth 10% and I have a midterm worth 15. So I've doubled the quizzes. So you can kind of think that each quiz is worth about 2%. But we'll just have a regular lesson instead of the midterm exam. I assume there aren't too many objections to not having a midterm exam. Thanks, Daniel. We'll also have, okay, excellent. Sorry to disappoint you, Braden. What we'll also do is, for an extra 10%, we'll have some really small in-class exercises. So that will be things like, today's won't be graded, but things like today's whiteboard exercise. So it's really just making sure that you're making kind of an in-class contribution, whether it's posting something in a discussion board or adding to a whiteboard, just small activities like that. And for those, you basically just get a completion mark. So just for doing those activities, that's 10% for staying engaged. And again, those activities, you have a week to do them. So if you're here in class in the WebEx session. I'll allocate time during the WebEx session for you to do those, like the activity we're going to do today. If you're learning asynchronously, you still have until 5 p.m. on the following Tuesday to do that activity for your 10%. And then on our last class, we'll have a final online exam. That will be an all practical exam. So I'm just going to post some requirements on Blackboard and say, okay, here's an application I want you to build. And typically for that, I create several versions of the exam, and each student kind of gets a different one at random. So not everybody, the requirements are roughly the same, but you won't have the exact same exam as the rest of the class, is how those work. Okay, so you do need to get a 50, which shouldn't be any problem, as I said, for students in second year. The only way you're not going to get a 50 is if you're not doing the work, realistically. Okay, so how the assignments are going to work. So everything will be due at 5 o'clock on a Tuesday. So the idea is you're not working all night Tuesday night on a project. You submit it by 5 o'clock Tuesday. You stop working, you get a decent night's sleep Tuesday. So then you're ready to come to class and move on to our next lesson Wednesday at 11. So the quizzes are due at Tuesdays. The small in-class learning activities are due Tuesdays at 5, and the 5 points of the 5 assignments, 1A, 1B, and 2A, B, C. Everything's due Tuesday. My late policy is I deduct 20% per day. Okay, so if you give me an assignment after 5 o'clock on a Tuesday and it's perfect, you get an 80%. And this is by design because if we're going to be professional developers, our bosses and our clients are going to give us deadlines when things have to be done. So I like to prepare my students for the reality that we do have deliverables where we have to stand up and say to our clients or our bosses, okay, here's the project that you can see. Okay. If for some reason you need more time, you have an emergency, you have an illness, please send me an email or book an appointment. We can talk about it and we can work out a reasonable accommodation. I do want to highlight this, however, there are no makeup assignments. So if you don't hand assignments in and you haven't earned enough marks, you're not happy with your grade at the end of the semester, I don't give out extra work, or you can't go back and submit work that was due long previously that for whatever reason you didn't submit. And that's not fair to all the students. That creates a fairness issue. If I let you go and submit assignment 1 that's due at the beginning of October, and I let one student submit it in December, well, that's not fair to everyone else in the class who submitted it on time. Okay, so you won't have that option. So I'm just going to tell you that right up front. I get requests for this at the end of every semester from students who didn't do work when it was due, and then they want to submit it months later. So it's just something that I can't do. The other thing I want to talk about is maybe the most important part of the conversation, which is all of the work, all of the assignments, anything you do for grades in this class is individual. There is no group work. Okay. And I spend far too much of my time, unfortunately, dealing with this every semester. So the minimum penalty if you submit the same work as someone else, or I find the work you submitted online, the minimum penalty, if it's never happened before, is you get a 0 on the assignment. If it's happened before during any course during your time at Georgian, the minimum penalty is a 0 automatically in the course, which shows up on your transcript. Okay. To prove to you that I deal with this every semester, here's my chart. Jarrett loves charts, so I decided to create one for him. So my winter semester was actually the second worst semester I've ever dealt with in terms of dealing with students not submitting their own work. And unfortunately, 4 of these last semester, they were students' third offenses, which means those students were all dismissed from the college for a year. So they get 0, 4 of these students get 0s in the course and a 1-year suspension from the college. Yeah, I know, it's awful. It's such a waste of time. So I try my best to prevent it. I try to scare you. I try to scare my students into not doing this, but obviously it doesn't work. I know, I think this semester, Jessica had 18 this summer. Okay. So I take this really seriously. Yep. And there's no warnings. So I use a code comparison software. Kevin, I have no idea. I just don't know. I use a code comparison software so it will show me how similar or how different two projects are. It color codes them, and it's usually really easy to tell. So one of the other things that conditions I've been putting in all my assignments now, and you may have experienced this with some of your other professors already, a lot of us are starting to add code reviews. So when you submit an assignment to me, I may ask you to have a WebEx meeting where you have to have your camera on and your microphone on, and we go through your project. And any work you submit to me, you need to be able to explain. If you submitted it, then that tells me you wrote it and you understand it. So I know some of the instructors, when they did this summer, they said every time they'd ask a student a question, the student would turn their microphone off for a minute, obviously asking someone else. Yes, I do use Beyond Compare, Jeffrey. So, which I can actually show you. Yeah, exactly, Braden. So if I ask you for a code review, you're not going to be able to turn your mic or camera off during the code review. Let's see. So something like, so here's two students' labs. So Beyond Compare shows the red is where the code is different, but the black is where the code is the same. So I might use something like this to try and determine. Yeah, you can keep your mic off normally during class. That's fine. But yes, if we have a code review because your work looks a lot like someone else's, then I'll deal with the barking dog. Okay. Oh, that's hilarious. I'd love to see a coding dog. So one of the other things that we're going to do this semester to try and prevent this is everyone is going to build their own project. So we'll look at this again next week. But just to show you. So before you can start on your project, you're going to have to submit a project idea on this little ASP.NET website that I've built, where you can see all the other project ideas in the class. You won't be able to see the names. So here I'll show you from my Lakehead section. They're already starting to submit project ideas. So the students can submit the project ideas, and then I can go in and either approve the project, or I can say, well, this project isn't good. It's maybe the same as someone else's, and you'll get an email notification asking you to resubmit. So before you submit, at least you can look at the ideas to make sure that your idea is not the same as someone else's. So I just have set this up, and I think I think Jarrett's going to use it as well. So I've created our Wednesday section. So you'll be able to go in here, look at the projects, and then next week you can submit your own idea for review. So that way, this I'm hoping will help also prevent some of the concern around students working together instead of doing their own work. Okay, so we'll look at that next week. So here's our rough schedule. It may change a little bit. So I'll give out assignment 1A, which is basically what I just showed you, just submitting your project proposal. So easy 5%. I'll assign that next week. I really should be charging Jarrett for that. That's actually a very good point, Braden. And then, so 1B is due just after Thanksgiving. And then assignments 2 in the 3 parts, those will all be due after reading week. Okay. So we may have to adjust the schedule a little bit, but we pretty much should be able to do this. This other stuff doesn't really apply because this is all about being on campus, which we are not going to be. So that's kind of the plan, the class plan. Does anybody have any questions about kind of how things are going to work? Concerns? Again, you can use the chat. You can also turn on your mic and just tell me what's on your mind.
So we're going to be developing like a shopping cart website over the course of the semester.
Yeah, so that, Daniel, that's what we'll do together for the in-class lessons.
Okay.
So what I like to do, rather than building like different things every week in class for the lessons, I like to create one large project that every week we add on to. So at the end of the semester, together, we've built a big kind of robust multifunctional application. So what I usually like to do in this class is build like a mock e-commerce store.
Oh, okay.
So we can create a product inventory. Users can shop, and then we can create a cart, and we can even integrate if we have time, we'll integrate an online payment gateway. So we can look at how would we process credit card transactions in an ASP.NET site.
All right. That was my next question, actually, whether or not we'd be processing payments. So
yeah,
cool,
that
cool.
should be in the shopping cart part 2. If we've got time, we're going to use the Stripe payment gateway because it has like a sandbox environment where you can do mock charges. So
Perfect.
last semester we were able to incorporate that because I think that is a valuable skill for web developers to know how do I integrate online payments. So yeah, that's part of the plan of what we're going to do in the in-class WebEx lessons.
Excellent. All right, yeah, because that just thinking about it for my for the project that I would submit, it would require at some point like online payment. So if we can cover that, that would help a lot.
Yep. Okay, great. That's definitely the plan.
Cool. All right, thank you.
Okay. Okay, you know what? Yes, sure. If you want to submit the project idea now, I will post the link. So I'll give you the link. So you'll just go here and all you'll do is click choose your section. You may want to view the projects first to make sure your idea isn't and then you can submit your project. You submit your idea through here. So first you check the list, and then you go back and you submit your idea through here. So you just put in your email. Your email will not be visible to anybody else. Only I will see your email, but others will be able to see your project description. Kevin, I'll address your question in a minute. Yes, Jeffrey, yes, you can. Okay. So Kevin, you were in this course in the summer? Is that right? Maybe easier if you put your mic on. Maybe you could share your experience a little bit.
I was last winter. I was doing my first. I was in my second semester, and I was doing ASP.NET with Marcus from the Colombo campus, and it was fun learning stuff, and we had a lot of material, and he was a little overexcited about all the stuff, and I did all right on the course, but I felt like I was just cranking out code more than actually learning because it was a lot of stuff to absorb, and it was just one thing to the next.
Got it. Okay. Well, I'm hoping you'll find this course a better experience. I don't know much about how that particular section was run, but yes, I would hope that things are more, you're finding it more organized. If you're not, then, during the semester, then come to me and let me know, and we can try to make some adjustments. Okay. Okay. Just looking at the other comments. You know what? In terms of the projects, my suggestion is let's hold off for now. So I guess maybe I'm going to go over the assignment next week. So a few people are saying I'm confused about the project. I'll go over the scope of it next week. So you don't have to worry about submitting your idea right now. I will explain the scope of the project. I'll even show you a demo project from last year that was a really well done project, which will give you a better idea of the scope. Okay. The basic idea just is everybody will get to build something that's interesting to them, as opposed to me saying, okay, I want you to build build a music library, and I get 30 music libraries. I don't want that. Okay, but we'll talk more about the project next week. So I'm just going to remove the link for now. I'll display it next week. So don't worry about the project for this week. I'll assign it to you next week. Okay. Any other questions about kind of the course plan, the grading, how things are going to work? If you any other questions? Okay. So I'll leave the syllabus up. You can find the syllabus under course information anytime you need to refer to it. If anything changes in terms of the dates, I will update that document. But other than that, this is kind of the Bible as to how things are going to work in the course. So a couple other things I want to show you quickly. So on weekly learning, so I have folders for the different weeks. I'm going to try to open them one folder, 1 week at a time. Anything that's general to the whole course, you'll find here under tools and resources. So put the WebEx link in here. So it's not going to change week to week, which is one of the nice things about WebEx. I said they're live streamed. I'm just going to update that because they won't be live streamed. It just is too slow to run a WebEx meeting and live stream at the same time. I've tried it and it affects the performance. So I'm going to say that I'll record and upload to YouTube after class. Okay, so the YouTube link is here. So to show you kind of what this will look like, I'll just pull up my channel. So I'm creating a separate playlist for each section. So for example, my Monday section, this is what our playlist will look like at the end of the day. So the welcome video I posted on Blackboard, and then I'll name each video which lesson, and usually we'll have 2, occasionally 3 parts of the video. Okay, and that's just, you just see my main screen and you can hear me. So at the end of the semester, So here's my my class from last fall. So we'll be doing a lot of the same things as we did last fall. Some things have been upgraded. So you can see by the end of the semester, so I record all my videos even when I'm in class. So there's 29 videos here. So if you want to watch anything from the previous semester because you're curious how it works, you want to jump ahead, you can always go and find the fall 2019 playlist for this same class. Okay, all my content is public. I leave it up there forever, which means if I update my lessons, next year, they'll still be on YouTube if you want to check them out. Okay, so the link is here. All the code we do in class, I will push to GitHub at the end of every class. Today will be the one exception because we're not really going to do much coding today. We're just going to kind of create a throwaway project. So here's my GitHub page. So we'll be creating a repository, and every week I'll update that repository with the code we do in class. So again, from my Lakehead section of this class last fall, you can see here's the repository that we built. So each week I indicated which lesson it was and what we were doing. Okay, so here we did actually get to the Stripe payment configuration and ordering last year. So this is what our in-class shopping cart site repository will look like, but I'll make a separate repository for our class. So if you miss class or you can't get things to work, you can just go to my GitHub repository and either pull it down or you can compare your code to mine to fix yours. So that link is here. I've included the office hours booking link, which is also in the syllabus. So we need to talk a little bit about Visual Studio. So I know everybody has Visual Studio already. Any edition you have is fine. Doesn't matter if you have 2017 or 2019. Both are going to work. I'm going to be using the 2019 Enterprise Edition, which you can actually get from the Azure for Education portal if you want it. Right? You do have to create an account using your Georgian login, and they'll confirm your student identity via email. You can get the Community Edition direct from Microsoft if you want it. When you install, or you probably have it installed already, it's really vital in order for this class, you need a couple of components installed. So I'll show you where to check for these. It's right here, if you can see in this screenshot of the Visual Studio installer under Web and Cloud, there's this ASP.NET and Web Development with the blue globe, and there's this Azure Development with the blue cloud. We need both of these components in order to create web projects in Visual Studio. So you may not have those components. You may have Visual Studio installed from your C# class, but when you set it up, you may not have included these components. So I'm going to show you now how to check, and then if you don't have them, how to install them. It's pretty easy. So if you open up just search and open up the Visual Studio installer, this will show you which version you have installed and which components you have installed. So I'm going to open the Visual Studio installer. Now I have two versions installed. I have both 2017 and 2019. So in my 2019 version, if I click Modify, it's going to take a second, but it will show me the components that I've already installed. So the two that we need are here under Web and Cloud, these two that are checked at the top of my screen, ASP.NET and Web Development, as well as Azure Development. We want both of these. So if you have these items checked off like me, you can just close this window. If they're not checked, then you want to check them both, and then you can either download and install, or you can install and download at the same time. Excuse me. So we'll need both of these options. Okay, so it's run the Visual Studio installer. Just putting it in the chat as well. Click modify beside your version. Check ASP.NET and Azure if not already checked. Okay, so I just added those instructions as briefly as I could to the chat. Don't worry if it takes a little bit of time. We will use these components today, but not quite yet. So if you need a little time to install them, that's fine. Okay, so I'm going to close this screen and close the installer. And Daniel, Enterprise just has a few additional features. I think some of the unit testing tools, which we're going to use towards the end of the course, I think they come as part of Enterprise. I think Community doesn't include them, but that's no big deal because there are some extensions for Community we can add on that have that same functionality. The other difference really is around licensing. I believe the Community version has a license restriction that you're not supposed to make commercial software with it, that you can't build and sell. Normally you pay for the Enterprise edition, but that gives you the right to build applications to sell. Now, we basically have a student license. Actually, this is one other thing I should point out. If you have Enterprise and you downloaded it through the Azure portal, I think you only get use of it for 30 days, and then it needs a license key. So if that's you, you can get the license key in the Azure portal. I can actually show you quickly where to do this. So if you got Enterprise from the Azure student portal, you can log into it and in here under education, you can either click on software or mine actually shows me Visual Studio right here. So this is where I got my copy from. And if you click on Visual Studio and then click View Key, it actually gives you the 25 character license key. So if your Visual Studio Enterprise locks after 30 days and says you must enter a license key in order to keep using it, because my version did this, you just copy this license key, and then I'll show you where in Visual Studio you would add this key. That unlocks it. So I'll just open up Visual Studio for a second. You don't need to worry about doing this right now, but if I just open up another project, I'll show you where that license key goes. Right, the free 30-day version, if you get it from the Azure portal, it's a student license. So they go away. Under the help menu, which WebEx won't allow me to see. Maybe if I do this. In Visual Studio, if you go to Help, I think, and About, yeah, there is the ability here. If you haven't put in your license key, you can put it in from here. So it already says license key applied. If you haven't, you have the option where you can copy and paste in your license key. Yes, absolutely, Braden. And we're going to be using Azure for hosting because we want to use hosting, Azure cloud hosting, for our ASP.NET application. So again, you don't have to worry about the license key for right now. You can always do this on your own time, but that's where you get it, is through the Azure portal. Thanks for pointing that out. So yeah, even if you already are using the Community Edition, you want to sign up for the Azure for Education. You don't have to do it today. We're not going to host today, but that's something I'll kind of go over in the next few weeks. Okay, so it's about it's 11:52 by my clock. So everybody's been in here for an hour already. So let's take a 10-minute break. Okay, go grab some food, grab a coffee, do what you need to do. We'll come back in 10 minutes.